how does true leadership, really emerge? Is it about grabbing power, or is it something forged, like in these impossible situations, maybe with divine guidance, through really deep personal trials?
That's a great question to start with.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our journey, walking through the book of Samuel chapter by chapter. We're trying to uncover things that might just reshape how you see leadership.
Exactly. And today, we're hitting a really crucial part of that journey. We're calling this one the divine path to kingship, 1 Samuel chapters 22 and 23. These chapters are, well, they're absolutely pivotal.
Pivotal not just for David's story, right, but for understanding what it means to be chosen for something big.
Precisely. And what makes this particular deep dive special is the lens we're using.
Right. We're drawing heavily from Ariel Louis's commentary, The Vindication of the King, which is just, it's revolutionary, really.
Right. It is. And it's important to mention, it's deeply inspired by his late father, Rabbi David Louis. And he actually produced it together with his son, Yehuda Louis. So it's this incredible family legacy of wisdom.
The legacy, yeah. But it's not just like a modern take, is it?
No, not at all. And that's key. While Ariel Louis's approach is unique, maybe artistically fresh, the insights themselves are firmly rooted. They're fully based on the timeless teachings of the sages of Israel.
So we're talking ancient wisdom passed down through generations of renowned rabbinic scholars, but presented in a new light.
Exactly. It's exploring established, enduring truth.
Okay, so our mission today, we want to unpack these two chapters, right?
Yeah.
To really see David's brilliance, both spiritually and strategically, as he's being prepared for kingship.
And contrast that sharply with Saul's leadership, which is just tragically unraveling.
Yeah. We'll see David's commitment to God's word, how he immerses himself in truth, refusing to stray. It becomes so clear his rise isn't just ambition. It feels like a divine mission.
It really does. And look, this is a profound journey, and we genuinely hope you'll join us. If you find this valuable, maybe take a second to subscribe. Give us a like.
Yeah, and leave a comment. We love hearing your reflections or questions. And share it with others who might be looking for this kind of clarity.
Absolutely. Helping us reach more people.
And for the whole story, you really should start the series from chapter 1 of Samuel. But, each chapter also stands on its own. Plenty of aha moments right here.
Definitely. So let's jump in.
Let's do it. Chapter 22, it picks up at a really desperate time for David. He's just escaped Saul, finds refuge in the cave of Adullam.
Right, the cave of Adullam. And it's fascinating who gathers around him. The text says, everyone in distress, everyone in debt to the king, everyone discontented, their freedom felt taken away.
About 400 men. You kind of
Yeah.
picture this motley crew of rebels, right?
That's the usual picture, yeah. But here's where Ariel Louis offers this just crucial insight. It completely reframes it. Louis suggests these weren't just outcasts. He says they were all disciples of Samuel, followers of the revolutionary prophetic movement.
Wait, hold on. Disciples of Samuel. So not just random disgruntled guys, but people already part of a spiritual and political movement, maybe even waiting for God's next move.
Exactly. That's the implication. It fundamentally changes how we see David's early army.
Yeah, less like a gang, more like a core group already aligned divinely. Wow. What does that mean then?
Well, it elevates them, you see. They're not just followers. They're committed to this prophetic vision. It shows how David's leadership was supported, maybe divinely, right from the start.
Okay. And what's David's first move with this group?
Shows compassion and strategy right away. He sends his parents off to Mizpah of Moab for safety. Even in his own danger, he's thinking of family.
Good point. And then the prophet Gad shows up.
Gad tells him, don't stay in the stronghold. Get thee into the land of Judah. Direct divine guidance. It's not just about safety. It's about positioning for God's plan.
While David's getting guidance, Saul is. Well, he's going the other way, isn't he? Just unraveling. Paranoia kicking in hard.
Oh, it's tragic and accelerating. We see him in Gibeah, under that tree, holding his spear. It's a power play meant to intimidate his servants.
He's just convinced everyone's plotting against him, accusing his own Benjamite officials of conspiracy, thinking they're backing David and Jonathan.
Total paranoia. It's the picture of a leader losing his grip.
And this is when Doeg, the Edomite, steps up.
Doeg, one of Saul's chief herdsmen. He saw David visit Ahimelech the priest in Nob, remember?
Right, and he reports it, probably exaggerating, that Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for David, gave him food.
And the sword of Goliath. And here's another massive insight from Louis.
Okay.
Louis points out, Doeg claims Ahimelech gave David the highly guarded secret of the sword of Goliath. What does that mean? Louis explains to Ahimelech, became unwittingly involved in knowing the classified information that the sword was not for self-defense, but to hold power over the Philistines.
Whoa, so it wasn't just giving a guy a sword, it was like sharing state secrets, knowing something that gave leverage over the Philistines.
Exactly. In Saul's paranoid mind, this turns a simple act of kindness into, like, international intrigue, a major security risk.
That's chilling, and what happens next is just horrific.
It is. Saul summons Ahimelech and all the priests from Nob, accuses them point-blank of conspiracy.
Ahimelech defends himself, though, right?
With dignity. Completely. Affirms David's loyalty, says he knew nothing of any plot. But Saul, he's beyond reason. He orders his guards to kill the priests.
But they refuse.
Amazingly, yes. They wouldn't touch the Lord's priests. A moment of real moral courage from them.
So Doeg does it.
Doeg the Edomite steps in and mercilessly kills 85 priests wearing the ephod, the sacred garment.
85 priests.
And it gets worse. Saul, through Doeg, orders the complete destruction of Nob, the city of priests, men, women, children, infants, even the livestock. Total annihilation.
Unbelievable cruelty. But one priest escapes. Abiathar.
Yes, Abiathar, Ahimelech's son. He escapes and flees to David. And David's reaction, it speaks volumes.
What does he do?
He immediately takes responsibility, shows profound remorse, tells Abiathar, basically, I knew Doeg would tell Saul, I've caused the death of your father's house.
Wow. He owns it.
Completely. And then he offers Abiathar total protection. Stay with me, fear not. Whoever seeks my life seeks your life. With me, you'll be safe.
Such a stark contrast. Saul's fear leads to tyranny and massacre. David, facing tragedy he indirectly caused, shows accountability, compassion.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About leadership, unchecked power, responsibility. What kind of leaders do we need, especially when things go wrong?
A powerful question for all of us. Okay, this leads us into chapter 23. Things shift to Keilah.
Right, Keilah. The Philistines are attacking, raiding the threshing floors.
And David, unlike Saul now, immediately does what?
Seeks God's guidance. He asks the Lord, should I go attack these Philistines? And God says, go smite the Philistines, save Keilah.
And Louis adds a detail here too.
Yeah, he notes God's response implies a surprise attack. Like, they aren't expecting you, giving David an edge.
But David's own men are terrified.
They really are. They say, look, we're scared even here in Judah. How much more if we go fight the armies of the Philistines in Keilah?
And Louis suggests their fear goes deeper. It's not just about the fight.
He thinks it's also a question about David himself. Like they're asking, are you really the king meant to fight the Philistines? Or is this just personal ambition? Are you truly God's anointed for this massive task?
That's heavy. Doubt from your own inner circle. What does David do?
Something amazing. He inquires of the Lord again.
A second time.
Yes. And Lewis describes it beautifully. He says, David inquired as one might speak to his father. Showing, Lewis argues, that David truly didn't want kingship out of ambition. He wanted it directly from God.
That humility, that surrender, checking back with the source. Wow.
It's profound. And God's response this time is even clearer, more direct.
What does God say?
Arise, be a king, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver all the Philistines into thy hand. It's this undeniable confirmation. You are king. Go do this.
Okay, so David goes, they fight, big victory, Keilah is saved.
Clear proof of God's favor.
Yeah.
But then Saul hears David's in Keilah.
And Saul thinks.
He thinks, God delivered him into my hand. He's trapped in a walled city. He totally misreads the situation, sees it as a divine trap for David.
So Saul mobilizes to go down there, but David gets wind of it.
Right. David perceives Saul's plotting mischief. So he calls for Abiathar, the priest who escaped Nob, to bring the ephod. Time for another inquiry.
And this is where Lewis gives us that really mind-bending insight about prophecy itself. This is huge.
It really is a game changer for understanding these texts. Lewis explains, okay, David as king can use the ephod. But then he says prediction of the future. It's not just not required in prophecy. It's a complete contradiction to prophecy.
Whoa, contradiction. Why?
Because Lewis argues prediction would deny free choice. And God values our free choice, our agency, above all. He wouldn't override it.
So the ephod, prophecy, it's not about telling the future.
According to Lewis, no. It's there to confirm or deny decisions which king is already contemplating. It guides present choices. It doesn't reveal a fixed future.
Okay, so David asks two questions, maybe a bit overly excitedly, as Lewis puts it.
Yeah, he asks, will the men of Keilah hand me over? And will Saul actually come down here?
And God only answers the second question. He will come down. Why ignore the first one?
Louis says God ignores the question about Keilah's men because answering it would interfere with their individual free choice. God's teaching David not to ask questions that negate human agency.
But he answers about Saul coming down.
Because Saul, Louis explains, had already freely chosen to pursue David. His intent was set.
And the proof it's not prediction
Is that Saul didn't end up coming to Keilah. Because David, acting on the guidance, left. So prophecy, Louis says, can influence the outcome of the future without prediction. It's guidance based on current trajectories and choices.
That's profound guidance, not fortune-telling. So David then asks again about Keilah's loyalty.
Yes, he reframes it. Will the men of Keilah deliver up me and my men into Saul's hand? And this time, God answers directly. They will deliver thee up.
Why answer this time?
Louis suggests it's because now David is asking about the inclination of a whole group, a collective pendency, rather than the specific free choice action of one person.
Okay. That distinction is critical. How does this radical view of prophecy make you think differently about guidance, free will, maybe even decisions in your own life?
It really makes you ponder. God's guidance isn't about removing our choices. Maybe it's about giving us the clarity to make better ones.
Absolutely. So David gets this intel. He and his 600 men, plus maybe 200 more from Keilah, they slip away.
Exactly. Saul hears David's gone, calls off the Keilah siege. The women and children are safe. David acted decisively on God's guidance.
And the pursuit continues. David's in the wilderness of Ziph now, moving constantly. Saul's hunting him daily.
Relentlessly.
Yeah.
But the text is so clear. God delivered him not into his hand. You just feel this divine shield around David.
And in the middle of all this danger, there's that touching moment with Jonathan.
Right. Jonathan finds David in the woods, strengthens his hand in God, tells him, don't be afraid. My father Saul won't find you. You will be king over Israel, and I'll be second to you. Even my father knows this.
Such loyalty. They make a covenant again.
Beautiful moment. But Louis adds a subtle point here. He notes Jonathan, while loving, was greatly mistaken for demanding authority over the anointed of God, by assuming he will be his second in command.
So heartfelt, but maybe misunderstanding the divine order of things. You can't just claim the number 2 spot with God's anointed.
Seems to be Louis's point. Intentions pure, but understanding flawed.
Okay, but the danger isn't over. The Ziphites betray David.
They do. They go to Saul, tell him exactly where David's hiding, and Louis has this really fascinating detail. He says the Ziphites belong to the demonic cult of Lilith.
Whoa. A demonic cult. What does that add?
It adds this whole layer of spiritual warfare, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Suggests David wasn't just fighting jealousy, but actual forces of spiritual darkness, chaos. Underscores the stakes.
And Saul. He's thrilled by the Ziphites' betrayal.
Oh, yeah. Blesses them, urges them to be absolutely sure, find all David's hiding spots. He's obsessed.
Yeah.
Promises to comb through all the thousands of Judah to find him.
The tension just builds and builds. Saul closes in. It looks like David's cornered, surrounded.
That really seems like the end game. But then, divine intervention. Suddenly, dramatically.
What happened?
A messenger rushes to Saul. Hurry, come back. The Philistines are raiding the land.
To messenger. But Louis identifies this messenger specifically, doesn't he?
He does. Louis states this was the angel Gabriel.
Gabriel. The angel Gabriel diverts Saul. That's incredible. Just direct, undeniable intervention.
Absolutely. Saul is forced to break off the chase, deal with the Philistines, and they name the place Selahamalakoth, Rock of Divisions, or Escape.
And David finds refuge again, this time in the strongholds of En-Gedi.
Yeah. And this whole sequence, Saul's relentless pursuit, driven by envy, obsession, it shows the destructive power of that. But David's constant escapes, the divine protection, it shows how God preserves his chosen ones, guiding them through the fire.
Wow, what an incredible couple of chapters. We've been exploring 1 Samuel 22 and 23 on the deep dive, really leaning on Ariel Louis's commentary, The Vindication of the King.
And it really does shift your perspective, doesn't it? On David's character, on how prophecy works, not prediction, but confirmation guiding free choice, and just how God's plan unfolds.
Seeing David's humble inquiry versus Saul's paranoia, it's stark. And seeing David forged into this leader, utterly reliant on God, committed to truth, even through betrayal and tragedy.
It's clear his path wasn't easy. It was a crucible. And these ancient texts, they really do offer guidance for us today, don't they?
Definitely. So here's a thought to leave you with. In our world, so often focused on ambition, on control, what would it look like if we embrace leadership in our own lives, families, communities that actually prioritize that humble inquiry, that spiritual clarity, that deep reliance on guidance beyond just ourselves.
That's a challenging thought. And reflecting on David's struggles against chaos,
Right.
his faith, it reminds us that standing for truth, battling destructive forces, that's an ongoing thing. May we all find that courage. And may wisdom and protection prevail, especially where they're needed most right now.
If this deep dive resonated, please do us a favor. Like it, subscribe, maybe share it with someone else who's seeking this kind of insight.
And leave those comments. We really do read them and appreciate the dialogue. It helps shape future Deep Dives.
Definitely. And follow the whole series on Samuel for the continuous journey. Until next time, may we all seek leadership that walks with truth, courage, and the wisdom of God.